So today is week 7, day 1, which means we're starting Terraform. Terraform is one of those things that can get like very wild, but the scope of what we're going to learn is more straightforward. So, that's always a cool thing. So the thing with Terraform is you guys have already dealt with infrastructure as code. You can remember one example of an infrastructure component, which is Dockerfile. With Dockerfile, essentially what you did is you use one file as a configuration, which lets you use that config opposed to using some sort of a GUI somewhere. So now we're using a different component, if you would, of infrastructure as code. It's called Terraform. And it's going to do the same thing. It's going to set up configs for something specific through this manual route, which gives you more control opposed to a GUI. So even here for this definition, it says it's by HashiCorp. Okay, cool. And it's transform manual cloud management into automated, repeatable deployments. So we're going to start off with these fundamentals here. All right. So why infrastructure as code? This bit's a little bit kind of like a sales pitch almost. It reminds me of an infomercial, but we'll go ahead and read it. Picture this, you're building a house and you hire a contractor and you tell them, just make it look nice. All right, then you're gonna have to hope for the best. Or you can give them a detailed blueprint for every beam, wire, outlet, everything. And then you can say which one would lead to better results. Now, that's a good question if you think about it, right? Because if you're going to ask a contractor to just build something, they'll build something to their standards, their perspective, which may be good for most houses, or in our case, most use cases. But if you have the skills to, let's say, make the blueprint and design every feature, you can actually now make a specialized house, right, with this analogy. And that's what we're doing with Terraform. You can essentially make pre-made stuff or utilize pre-made stuff, or you can kind of detail your own. When we get into like AWS, there are ways to do the config through their GUI. You go on AWS console and you start clicking changes. We're going to get into that in a bit, but essentially with that, the problem that you run into is everything's a new button click in a new place. They change their GUI all the time. Sometimes you want to like create an EC2 instance, and you want to make more than one. In the GUI, you're actually going to have to restart that process all over again just to do it again. Whereas here, you can just kind of copy the code. That's just kind of like a quick overview of what it is and the benefits. So what is Terraform? Terraform is like having a universal translator for cloud services, in our case, AWS. You write your infrastructure requirement once, and Terraform handles the complex API calls that make it happen. And you can use it. It is provider agnostic, so you can use AWS, Google Cloud. It doesn't matter. You're setting it up. So you can think of Terraform as your infrastructure foreman. This is going off of the same house analogy. You hand your foreman the blueprints, which is going to be your configuration file. And it's going to coordinate all subcontractors, which would be the APIs, to build exactly what you specified. If something goes wrong, it knows how to fix it. If you need to tear everything down, it remembers every piece it built, and it could remove them in the right order. And that's because things have dependency. So even if you're taking things apart, you can't just like gut them. There's things that are reliant upon each other, coupled, that have to be taken out in a specific order. And that's part of the benefits of Terraform as well. So traditional problem. Let's say that you are creating an infrastructure and you guys have your VPC or virtual private cloud with the network. Right? Let's say you're going to create that, and you also want to create a security group with specific rules. You're going to create EC2 instances with load balancers, and you want a database that's very specific, right? Has specific configs. You can use the AWS consoles. This is what I was referencing a bit ago. Just this alone might be over 200 clicks across dozens of pages. And if you miss a setting, it's just going to break because now you didn't configure it right. It's broken. Then if you need to build the same thing again, let's say now you built it in East 1. Now you want it in West 2. Okay, go ahead. Start all over again. Another 200 clicks. Another dozens of pages. That's if you're using the GUI. So there is an option with AWS CLI which is kind of like, okay, cool. We don't have to use the GUI. We can use the CLI to interact with the cloud platform. But now you need to memorize dozens of commands, hundreds of parameters. Same thing, one typo and it's done. So this was kind of like the infomercial, right? Like I picture the way this is worded, like someone with like 100 Tupperwares. You ever see that they open the drawer and all the Tupperware falls out? If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. So the solution, right? Terraform. With Terraform, you describe the entire infrastructure in just a few dozen lines of readable code. And if you want to build it in different regions, you just change the one variable that's directing it to that specific region. If you want to replicate it for a client, let's say, you could just copy the files. If you want to see what has changed between each of these versions, Git difference will show you it instantly. So more importantly than even all of these conveniences is that Terraform understands dependencies. It knows that you can't create, if you were creating an EC2 instance, it knows that you can't create it before the actual VPC exists. So it builds things in the right order automatically. Kind of like we said, same thing if you're destroying something, it knows the order of relatability, if you would, of dependency. Same thing when you're building it. Right now, it's a little abstract because we're not showing you. We definitely should, when we get to the lab portion, and there's little code snippets through here that we'll talk about. But essentially, just remember it's a configuration file that allows you to set up things without having to use a GUI. And because of that, it's just way more convenient and you have way more control. So we're going to talk about some core concepts. We are mentioning state management, but you're actually not going to get into the weeds of this until next week, because Terraform is going to continue until next week because it does get in depth. So for Terraform, state management, this is something that separates Terraform from simple scripts. Because if you've done some scripting, you know that essentially scripting can set off like a chain of functions or set up configs essentially. But it's not the same, especially because of state management. So Terraform does have state management, and you can imagine if you were assembling something from IKEA, let's say you had a bookshelf, and then halfway through you leave, you go on vacation. When you come back, would you want to start all over again? Like open up the box and put it back together? Or do you want to pick up from where you left off? Because that's what the state management, or this specifically the state file does, is it saves where you're at. It tracks every resource it created, every setting that it's configured, and every dependency relationship. So all of this is saved in that state file. And because it has this awareness, right? It has awareness of these three things within the state file, it can update existing resources instead of creating duplicates. It knows what to destroy when you want to tear down infrastructure, and it can detect when someone manually changed something outside of Terraform. I forget the term for this, but it's essentially whenever you're doing configs, whether it's especially through Terraform, if you're creating your own configs over utilizing the GUI, if you change stuff in your Terraform and then you change something in the GUI, there's a good chance they're going to be out of sync. And then that causes, I forget the exact term, but essentially it just causes that conflict where this is trying to do something and this is like, nah, bro, we're trying to do this. So essentially when you are using Terraform, you're also kind of making a promise to yourself, if you would, that you're not using the GUI for those configurations. You can still utilize the GUI to like check logs, and if you want to visually verify, visually verify that things were uploaded, S3 buckets were created, EC2 instances were altered. I mean, you could still use it as like a viewing portal, but you're going to kind of pick a lane. So plan before apply. Before Terraform makes any changes to your infrastructure, it shows you exactly what it's going to do. The plan phase is like having a construction foreman walk you through the work before getting started. There is a command for this. You're gonna see it a lot, and we'll show you it. And this plan, though, it tells you what new resources will be created, what existing resources will be modified, what resources will be destroyed, and why each one's necessary. That's because you get the plan before you actually save anything or push it forward. You do have a declarative configuration, which is traditional scripts are imperative, that they tell the computer exactly what steps to take. So here's the thing, there's two different types of things here, right? We have traditional scripts that are imperative. And then you have Terraform, which is declarative. So this section is the difference between just regular scripting and Terraform is another emphasis. So traditional scripts, once again, they're imperative, which is what? Imperative approach will first create a VPC, let's say, then create subnets, then create security groups, then create, and it just kind of goes on. Terraform is declarative. So you describe the end result you want, and then Terraform figures out how to get there. So with that same declarative approach, you'll say, I want a VPC with subnets, security groups, and instances. So it's like instead of like saying do this, then this, then this, then that, blah, 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 you're kind of just saying this is the totality of the end result, and it's going to kind of just take care of it. There are sometimes, not that they're too much to do because this is correct, it is declarative. Sometimes you may run into instances where you do need to set a dependency, like, hey, when this is done, run that. But it's not so common. So just know that Terraform is declarative. We're going to kind of get into the syntax fundamental, which I assure you is very simple. The concept is simple. Just looking at it for the first time, it looks like it's a foreign language. It's just syntax. And once we get into the lab, you're going to say, oh, wow, yes, this is very, very simple. But essentially what you have is this block structure. The block structure is exactly what it looks like. Think of it as syntax, right? It's sections in a blueprint. So your file that you're going to create is going to literally just be a bunch of these. It's a bunch of blocks. Your block is made up of these three main things right here. This is a block type, and it tells Terraform like the object that you're creating. So this is always the first thing you do. Some examples are like a resource, if it's a variable, a provider, data, output. So for example, whenever you create this, the first thing you're going to do is establish a provider. So the first block in your file is the provider. And essentially with the provider, if we're using AWS, because remember it uses GCP, whatever, we're going to literally just specify that it's AWS. So right here for block type, literally it would just be provider. Like it's just this. Then you have here block label, and I'm sure all of this will make more sense when we show you the little code snippet. So here we have a block label, and the block label is the specific type used mainly for resource and data source. Excuse me one second. All right, that means I'm talking too much. I'll probably have you guys read. But for the block label, it's a specific type used mainly for resource and data source. But this tells Terraform specifically which component for the provider to use. So here you're saying, oh, I want to use this AWS instance or the Google storage bucket, just whatever. Then the block name is whatever you want it to be. So these other ones exist. These are pre-existed things that you would essentially reference. The block name is whatever you want it to be. So it's called the local identifier, but you can name it database primary, main, whatever. It's the same as if you were naming a class, or in this case, naming a block. Just your own custom deal here. There are more aspects to this. For example, all of the configurations, the body, right? That would be the next group. You'll have argument names and values. These are settings that are key value pairs. And then you can also have nested blocks, which are sub-configurations. What I'm going to do is, let me see if I have one of these examples pulled up. Here, let me just show you this little bit of the lab real quick. Just so you guys can see a little bit of the syntax, and you're going to say, oh, this is super simple. Okay, so if you remember right now, we were talking about block types. We said one of them is, actually, let me see if there's a provider one in here, because that's the easiest one to. There you go. So this is literally one block of code that we're going to use in our lab today. And here the block type is specified as provider, and then the provider is AWS. Within it, there's a body that we had saw. The dot dot dots is the body. And here we're just specifying region, US East once.
So is the name optional?
Which name? This one?
No, the third argument before the curly brackets start. Because you said it was
The
provider, then the resource, then a name that doesn't matter, or is whatever you want it to be, right?
Then is it optional? In this use case, the I feel like okay, I guess this one is a little trickier
The
then.
block name.
Yeah. You're asking about the block name. I believe in this case it is optional because there's an emphasis here that says the name you choose is used to reference a block name elsewhere in your code, like variable in Python. It has no effect on the actual code infrastructure name. So yeah, it's optional, but you're going to reference it. That's why the question's a little, is it optional in the sense if you have one block in theory and you're pushing? I believe the answer is yes. In practice,
You want to give it a name so you can reference it at
yeah,
other
you're going to give it
points.
a name so you can reference it. Exactly.
And
So
then
it's,
the block labels, is there a list published for each category like on their websites, or
there is a link. So good
I'm guessing
question.
like, yeah,
And
so
at
like
some
say
point,
as Azure blob for storage.
so that's a good question. And one of these lessons today, there is a link, and it's going to have like a list of like all of the options that you can use. So yes, there is.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all offhand, and I don't know where the link is, but we are going to get to it today. So good question. And then nested block is just a sub block, which is just another block of code that is dependent within there, within the parent. And like I said, when we get to the lab, this will make way more sense. Here's just like a quick example, if you would. It's just the structure. Obviously, it's not structured. Oh, I didn't know this was right here. Well, this was the example I wanted. I thought. Okay. So anyway, the block type, an example of that would be resource. A block label would be AWS instance. The block name, my first server, whatever you want to name it. Then you can have an argument name, which is instant type, argument value, which is T2 micro. You're not making any of this other stuff up. It's all legit stuff that you have to reference, which is part of the config. So here for main block types. Okay, yeah, so this is kind of answering your first question in a sense, or at least part of it, right? Because you were asking specifically about these block labels. So for block type, we do have a list right here of the common ones. So provider, you're going to use this every time because you need to like reference your service. The provider block tells Terraform which cloud service you're working with. So in this case, which one are we using?
AWS,
AWS, my man. And then anybody know what region it's in?
US East 1.
Yeah, easy peasy. So this is literally how you would define it. Then here another block, resource block. This one creates and manages infrastructure. So in this case, we want to manage AWS instance. We're going to name it web server. That's our human readable name we came up with on our own. And then within here, we have these like key value pairs, which is part of here, the argument name and values. They're always going to be key values. So in this example for the resource, we have an AMI and we have an instance type. What this is, we'll get to more in the lab because once again, nothing else is like made up, right? Everything is a specific thing that we're referencing. We are going to use this. We're going to show you how to find the AMI when we get to the lab. You can also create a data block. This one has a, what is it, type? I get them confused, a label. This one has a label for AWS AMI. And we know that it's running on Ubuntu, so we're calling it that for ease. Here's its key value pair that we're configuring. So the thing you'll notice with these configurations, right? These are, or excuse me, the things you'll notice with these key value pairs is that they are configurations. This is literally what you would do if you were in the AWS console. You would find like, oh, let me find this AWS AMI thing, but it's not worded like this. And oh, let me change this to true. Let me establish this owner. Let me change the type, whatever it may be. So then you can also have an output block. This one, if you've coded in JavaScript, it's essentially a print statement. I'm sorry, JavaScript, it's a console log. If you coded in Python, it's a print statement. This is literally outputting whatever you want it to your terminal. So
And
there's different,
I have a
I'm
quick
sorry?
question. I didn't know if you wanted us to raise hands or just interrupt.
Oh, no, it's cool. What's up?
So for that, so all of this is done in the terminal, right? So it's not like within the console.
So
So
all of this would be one literal file
a
that we would
file.
make.
Okay, then you'd be like run file.py or whatever the dot is for Terraform.
Sort of, but not quite. So whenever you're, and we'll get to this, but it's fine that you asked. We'll answer it now. What you're going to do is you're going to create a file called main.tf,
Okay.
and there's a list of Terraform commands that we would run. The last one being Terraform apply.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, it essentially knows to like read up, hit your main dot TF, and then go through these things. And then that's why you also create this output, because when you're running the different steps, there's like you're going to initialize it, you're going to plan it, you're going to validate it, you're going to did I say apply already? Plan it, plan
Yeah.
apply. And with that, you can set up these outputs that'll give you like a certain status that you want, and these statuses are going to come in handy, especially like when you're applying. They'll show you what's being created, and so to yeah, that I assume I answered your question, correct?
Yes, thank you. And it looks like we're about to go through it one by one. So
Okay,
that
cool.
that really helped. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it's right here, so perfect timing. It's funny because I always review these, but I forget the order that they're in.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I
I
just think it's
appreciate it
like,
because I was just trying to picture like, okay, it's an AWS Terraform, but is it in the console or so now I'm framing it, it's in the terminal. So like command line interface. This is something that we're making files, and then we're gonna run it and it will, call out and do something in whatever system that we want it to. And then there will be, I'm just curious, and we'll get into it with the demo or whatever. I'm just curious if it's gonna have like the output similar to like when you are running like a Flask app where it's kind of like still running initialize, and then like you'd have to exit the command, and then I'll just wait and watch it happen before I ask.
okay. Yeah,
It,
cool. So yeah, exactly. So it is in a file. There are still CLI commands that you run. Obviously, we're going to get into them. And sometimes you can keep instances running. I think we're going to hit that up on day two to import, but we might do it on day one because, like I said, I go through all this and then I forget what's on which day. So the good news is, yeah, we're going to cover everything that you just asked in a demo. You are going to see it, but your concept is correct to know that it is in a file and we are interacting with it through the CLI. Here it says that every Terraform project follows a reliable workflow. So the commands that you put in, that is that workflow. That's you initializing, or not initializing, that's you executing that workflow in a pattern. So the first thing you want to do is initialize it every time. So here it says if you're starting a new project, this is main.tf has to be created. So you have to create your file first. Something has to exist. But then Terraform init, if you're starting a new project, adding new providers, or if someone else shares their code with you, every time you're going to initialize it. Then there's Terraform plan. This shows you exactly what Terraform will do before it does it. So this can show you, and I know we mentioned this, just a minute ago, but this compares your config to the current infrastructure state. So that's important. That's why it's like a real thing of saying, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what already exists. And it shows you what will be created, modified, and destroyed. This one is the easiest output. It's the last line. It'll just show you straight up, like 2 created, 1 modified, whatever. So you already know what you're doing, right? Because you're going to create this main.tf. You're going to initialize it. And then when you do this plan, this is like a validation almost for yourself to say, okay, good. What I put in is actually, set up. There are 2 changes, whatever. And then I guess these aren't in the correct order. Oh, this is missing validate because it's an optional step. So we are going to talk about that more in the lab though. Terraform apply. This executes the plan. This is like the big boy. This is saying, okay, cool. Now we're comfortable to actually put this up. And it makes real changes to your infrastructure. This is like giving the contractor the green light to start building. So when you hit Terraform apply, it does show you the plan again. It also asks you for confirmation. So you literally will type in yes. You can be a little more like rogue, do Terraform apply and append this onto it. It's just going to auto say yes. This will make the actual changes to your cloud resources, and it's going to update the state file to reflect what was built. So this is like, if you remember, this is like your memory card. It's like the saved states. There is another one that's also important, especially because we're not trying to spend so much money always, right? That's always the thing with any business. Terraform, destroy. This tears down everything that Terraform created. This is like having a demolition crew that remembers exactly what they built so they can remove it. This is incredibly valuable for development environments. Like, so when we're doing our labs, we are going to destroy our stuff at the end of the day. So yeah, in dev environments, you want to spin up and tear down. Cost management. And then if you're just testing stuff, then you can go ahead and destroy it. If whatever you're doing is like super important or like detrimental to like the heart of a big company or an actual prod, you'll probably, I would assume, never really run this. But for what, our purposes, you are going to run this at the end of every lab. So why does this matter? Well, you've already learned to build infrastructure manually through AWS console. I know you guys have messed with that in previous projects. That's like learning to drive before learning to build cars. You need to know what the end result looks like. So, it's like more of the hand holding. But now you're learning to automate the same infrastructure. That's like key takeaway, learning how to automate it. Every click that you made in AWS console can be translated in Terraform code. This is exactly what now we're just iterating. Whatever you can do in the GUI, you can do through Terraform, through the configs. But what's here? But once it's in code, right, the version we're doing, you get these superpowers, you get version control. You can collaborate because you can share it with your team. You can test it, validate it before deploying. And there's a command for that, which is Terraform validate. You can do automation, build, update, destroy your infrastructure. And you can document it because code is documentation, since we all know how to read code. And then, all right, that's like the super basics. We are going to get into more stuff, but let's just take a minute and breathe because I've just kind of been talking. Is anyone super lost? Like, let's start with like whoever thinks they're like the most lost. Does anyone have no idea what we're talking about? All right. Is anyone mildly lost, or do you feel like the sharing of information has been appropriate to just kind of move forward at this point?
I think it makes sense. I mean, once we get into it, like we start installing and everything, I think it makes sense enough to practice and start learning.
Okay.
Yeah. This is all new to me, but the concept is I'm understanding your lesson and the concepts you're explaining.
Okay. Cool beans. So let's rock. So,
So just a quick question, Jonathan,
sure.
on where in the binaries for Terraform and your project that you want to use it for, you're not sending like Terraform binaries into deployment space with your project, right? This is going to be for your dev environment and maybe your prod environment, but it's not really associated. The files are associated. I'm asking like, where does Terraform live in terms of your development environment as in relation to your project?
Yeah, that's a solid question. So you would put it in your project. Like the file itself is going to be in your project.
The file,
If you're
yeah.
asking if it needs to be in prod, the answer is no. Because when you're running it, it's already doing the magic. If you kind of remember, like with Docker, when we were running our Docker file, all the magic was handled by Docker Desktop.
Yep.
So it's kind of similar. Now all the magic is handled by the provider. Well, there's probably an intermittent step that I'm not aware of. If anyone knows that, I mean, please let us know. But essentially, when you run it, it's doing what it has to do in the config. And then that file is just a file at that point. There would be no reason for it to be in prod. Now,
Okay.
if someone knows, a use case that I don't know, I mean, please, I'm not the Terraform expert. And actually, I know Mike has been doing a lot of growth in Terraform. But Mike, if you're still present, there's absolutely no reason, right, for Terraform to actually go into prod, like the files itself. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. Oh, you guys heard him. No, I'm just kidding. I guess he's A-okay. All right. So yeah, so solid question. So we'll just move forward for now. So lesson 2, Terraform install. Before installing Terraform, ensure you have AWS CLI installed and configured with your credentials. That way it knows where to actually send this information to.
Is that the same with like any of the other ones?
I'm sorry?
Like if you're going to be using it for Azure or Google, would it be the same way? Like
Oh
using
yeah,
their
absolutely.
version? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, think of it the same way like when we use like git pull and git clone. I mean, unless it knows who we are, it can't even communicate, to who it needs to communicate to. So yeah, you need the appropriate credentials. And then you need git, because that does handle the version control. And obviously, I don't know if this is here, you need a code editor. Obviously, all right, I don't know what that's here. If I saw it the first time, I would have deleted that. Okay, so whenever you install Terraform, it's pretty much here. If you're on Mac, if you're not on Mac, it seems to be the pattern always. But essentially, just brew tab. Remember, it was made by HashiCorp, however you want to say it. And then brew install Terraform. And then, of course, from there, then you verify it. Whenever you download anything, always just pull up that version to ensure it's correct. All right, so that's here for your reference whenever you guys are ready to do that. And in fact, even right now, if you guys want, I assume that you also follow along. I mean, some people do. If you do follow along with the notes, just go ahead and feel free to copy that into your terminal, or even within a specific project folder if you'd like. All right, and there's an alternate method where you download it and extract it and verify it. I didn't do it. I didn't test this. I mean, we have a CLI, so I don't understand if there's a benefit to that, but there is another option at least. So development environment setup, VS Code extension, highly recommended. I don't have that, but maybe it would have helped, who knows. So here are just two extensions, it looks like. HashiCorp Terraform, which helps with syntax highlighting and validation. And then AWS Toolkit, which is resource integration. And then I can't read this bottom part. Oh, here, I can move up, I can see it a little bit. All right, Terraform terminal config, just there you go, you can run this code. So as you can tell, to install it is like nothing, right? You just put in like very few lines of code. Bada bing, bada boom, start to deal. And then let's go on now to lesson 3. Oh, excuse me. Terraform commands. This is essentially what we talked about already, because that's kind of how simple, and when I say simple, I mean simple in theory. Terraform gets very wild, but it's like the concept of it and the basic execution is very simple. But right now we're going to talk about some of the commands. There are essentially only 2 parts to Terraform. Writing the configurations, which is the file I told you about, the one we've been talking about, main.tf, and then running the commands, which is some of the stuff I told you about already. And then that's kind of just in theory, though. Don't hold me to this when you guys are drowning or whatever. But for now, I mean, that's all you're really doing. So here's the standard workflow. This is what we talked about. You're going to initialize the project. Do you guys remember when you're supposed to do this?
Starting a new project, adding providers, and messing with someone else's code, running their code on your machine.
Yep. Perfect. And then we didn't talk about this one because it's optional. It says recommended. So Terraform FMT for format. Essentially what it's going to do is format your code. But this is just, unless there's something else, I don't know, but it's just a linter. So if you already have a linter built into your computer, or to your computer, like into your IDE, you don't need this. It's just going to auto pretty it up for you, whatever, like auto lint it. Then you have validate. This one will actually validate your code, ensure that it's like rocking. There's a better explanation of that below, so we'll just read it as is. And then there's Terraform plan. This one's to preview what you created, what's changed, what's going to be destroyed. Then there's Terraform apply. This is the big boy. Remember, we're pushing it in. And then there's Terraform destroy, which in our environments we're going to use all the time. In real life, you probably won't use that so much. So look, here's a little bit, we're kind of like jumping into it. Let's see if there's something better here than what we already talked about. So the init initializes a project. When to use it, the first time setting up a project, after adding new providers, and reinitializing, oh, this one's good. If you need to reinitialize after corrupting your state. That's kind of, okay. So what it does, it downloads the plugins. So remember how you're always going to specify that provider first? It is going to need certain plugins to work. It's going to take care of that for you when you run this command, terraform init. And then it's going to create a directory called .terraform. That's where all of the dependencies are going to be. It's also going to create another file called terraform.lock.hcl. This locks dependency versions. And then it's going to set up the backend for state management. So just this one command is going to do all of this for us. Here's an example output. Initialize the backend, and then here are some plugins, whatever, successful. With init, I mean, I'm not sure if you're really going to read that. You're mostly just looking for this keyword, right? If it's successful, it's successful. And then Terraform format, if you remember, this is essentially, here it just says styling conventions. I don't think you guys are ever going to need it, but we'll read it. This formats your code, when to use it, before committing code, after writing or editing, or to make your code more readable. What it does, automatically fixes indentation, aligns equal signs for readability with your key value pairs. It ensures consistent spacing and modifies your file. So once again, if you have a linter built in, you absolutely don't need this. Here's an example. This is before. You notice like, okay, we just wrote it like a human, and then here's after. Cleans it right up, right? It adds the spacing. Once again, your linter should do that for you. If not, I recommend that you get a linter extension with your IDE. All right, now here's Terraform Validate. This is one we haven't talked about much. This one checks your config for syntax and logical errors. So this one's actually checking for useful stuff, unlike the format. When to use it, after writing or modifying config files, before running plan or apply, to quickly catch errors without making the API calls. What does it actually check for? What's it actually doing? It's checking for syntax errors. If you have missing brackets, broken quotes, whatever. Invalid attribute names, because remember, something besides your block labels, or is it block? Yeah, your block name that you get to create. Everything else is like a literal term, so it's going to tell you if it's invalid. It's going to reference to non-existent resources, or if you have references to non-existent resources, it's going to tell you. It's also going to check for missing required arguments and type mismatches. What it does not do, Terraform Validate does not check for whether resources already exist in AWS. You'll find that out later the hard way. And then it does not check authentication or permissions or resource limits or quotas. So essentially, this is what it does. It makes sure that your coding syntax is actually correct and you're actually referencing things that exist. So it's validating just that aspect of the code. Here's an example. It'll say success. If you got an error, it's actually going to tell you here, error on main.tf. You already know that's the file, give you the specific line, and then it's going to show you the resource here, or not really the resource, excuse me. It's just going to show you that whole line. And then here it's specifically going to say, hey, the instance type is required, but no definition was found. That's just an example. Okay, so if you guys remember, at this point, if we've initialized it, we validated it, now we want to see the plan. We want to say, hey, give me the quick summary of what we're attempting to configure. It's kind of how you can think of it, at least from this state forward, right? Since the last push, or the last apply, excuse me. This shows you what Terraform will do without actually doing it. You can call it a dry run if you'd like. When to use it, before every apply to preview changes. To verify your configuration, will do exactly what you expect. And to see what resources will be created, modified, or destroyed. This is the biggest part of the output that you're going to look for. So what does Terraform plan actually do? It's going to compare your configurations against the current state. It's going to show what will be created, added, what will be modified, and what will be destroyed. This is going to display resource attributes, some shown as known after applying. Wait, what? Some shown as known after apply?
Like if you don't know what it's going to be called until after it's been applied.
Yeah. Just seems weird. Okay, but it's not weird because it's just weird to me. So I appreciate that. And then Terraform plan is also going to perform a refresh to see the current state of existing resources, and it's going to make API calls to validate. but it doesn't create anything. Remember, it's just a dry run. So here's an example output of Terraform plan. Here you're going to see like a block, however many blocks. It's going to show you here what's like being added, these pluses. So yeah, in this case, there's nothing being taken away, but you have this added, right? So 1, 2. And then if we go to this summary here, plan 2 were added. It's referring to these. Nothing was changed and nothing was destroyed. So those key symbols are these when you're actually looking at the blocks themselves, like the reference. The plus is if it's created. The in tilde, I believe is what it's called, is if it's being modified. The subtract or negation is what's being destroyed. And then this bad boy, if it's a minus sign slash addition, it's will be destroyed and recreated. So minus and plus. You can think of it as a preview or simulation. And then we have Terraform apply. Terraform apply creates, updates, or deletes resources that match your config, because now it's actually executing that plan instead of doing the dry run. So essentially, everything that we saw here is now literally happening. You're saying, actually do this. So when to use it? After reviewing the plan and you're ready to proceed. When you want to actually deploy your infrastructure. This is the go-ahead, the green light. What it does, it runs a plan automatically. It shows you the preview. Terraform apply also asks for confirmation. You have to type yes to continue. And then it creates, modifies, destroys resources in the order needed. Remember, it knows about like dependencies and such and what's reliant on what, so it's going to do it in the proper order. And it's going to update the state file to track what actually exists, and it displays the output at the end. An example output here, just showing you that it's going to perform the following, and then show you whatever it needs. Then it's going to ask you to validate. That's why you type in yes, because it's going to reiterate the plan, and you can check it if you'd like and say, okay, yeah, I do want to proceed. If not, you can just cancel out of it. And then here it shows you what's being created. If you run into a problem, you'll see still creating forever, or you'll see it actually keep popping up, and this time here will go up. And then here, after complete, remember the plan, how we were adding to, change nothing, destroy nothing? Here, there you go, it's complete. This is what we actually did. That plan is now done. And then there's one more, which is Terraform destroy. And you guys remember this. Destroys all resources managed by the Terraform config. So when to use it? When you're done with a lab or a project. To clean up resources and avoid AWS charges. Remember, they charge for everything. If you think it's not being used and consumed, if it exists, 99% chance it's incurring a cost. And then if you want to just start fresh for whatever reason. I say that, but when I was constructing these labs, they're relying on each other, so I'd have to kind of restart them to see how they would work in other instances. All right, and then what does destroy do? Like what's it actually doing? Terraform destroy shows you what will be destroyed, similar to the plan. It asks for confirmation. It's going to delete resources in reverse dependency order. And then it's going to update the state file. So you'll notice it's literally doing the exact equal opposite of apply, but instead of like now constructing it, it's literally just deconstructing it, but it's still doing the same thing, still updating the states and doing it in the correct order. And then here's an example. If you ran Terraform destroy, it's going to say, hey, we're going to do these actions. So here's a block of code, and now you'll notice this symbol. Do you guys remember what this means?
Remove or delete?
Correct. It's going to delete it. So it's saying, hey, we're going to delete this resource. Hey, I'm going to delete that resource. So then here, the plan is we're not adding anything. We're not changing anything in a very literal sense, meaning not destroy, or like just meaning modify. And then here, 2, we're destroying 2 things, which we can see here, 1 and 2. And then if you want to proceed, you click yes. Same thing, it's going to show you what it's doing in the order it's doing it. And then there you go, success, 2 destroyed. Warning, this cannot be undone, as you know. So here's a quick reference, because this is the order you're going to run it in. Init, like I said, you're not really going to use this format if you have a linter. So init, validate, plan, apply, destroy. And just to clarify, just because I don't have the CLI open, this is literally the command. This is what you're going to type into your CLI.
In project root, right? Just like if you're doing Git, if you're initializing Git for the first time, you want to be in project root for that, right?
You want to be in project root. I believe you want to be in the root. Well, I mean the Terraform root, if you would. If that's a good question. If you're saying if you're in the source of the project, will it still run? No, I think the answer is no. You have to be in the same folder as main.tf. I don't believe it's going to traverse the files to find it, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
okay. So, okay, yeah, cool.
For the IP's output, is that something like so for each instance, like say, but you have to tell it. I guess I'm trying to put my mind around it because you were mentioning like one of the justifications for using this is that it would like it saves you having to write specific lines of code. So like say I want to, I don't know, we set up the VPC with like all the extra stuff. It's like 10 different things, you know, like routing tables and all the things. We will still have to have um, a block for each one of those things. Like it's not going to do any of that automatically. And then we would have to
And
put
real
in,
quick, I want to make sure because I'm not sure if I
yeah,
misheard you or if I misunderstood. You
yeah.
said the point of this is to save us from writing code. The
No,
point,
like you had mentioned, as opposed to using the command line interface.
no, no,
You were
no.
going through,
This is just to clarify, just let me make
yeah.
sure I understand. Um, with this, we're creating a file and then using the CLI to essentially implement the file. So
Hmm.
Terraform is an alternative to using the GUI, like the AWS console. It's not an alternative to writing code because this is writing code. It's just we're writing block.
Yeah. Okay. In the beginning, you mentioned that it also was an alternative to using AWS
Oh, the
CLI.
AWS CLI specifically.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes, correct.
Yeah. I was just, yeah. Okay. And I guess my question is, so yeah, so the file is going to have like all the different resources that we need to use. It wouldn't know to include a dependent resource. I don't know how to give you a use case to say like, so if I make this one thing that
Are
needs something else to be running, like a route table maybe, or something like
Like
are
will
you
it,
you
essentially
tell it to
asking?
make EC2. Does it
yeah,
know to automatically make a VPC?
yeah, I guess like stuff like that. Or do I need to put every bit in there? And then if so, do I need to also put in, that I'm going to need to know the IP in order to access that, the IP addresses for basically everything, the public and private, so that way I can access it.
You are. Yeah, you still
Okay.
have to, the things that it can't know, you have to know and you'll put in. So like something like an IP address, yeah, we have to put it in. And like even let's say we apply and create an EC2 instance and then later we're going to utilize it for whatever reason or like run it, you do
Uh-huh.
need to have that like specific information of what it needs.
Okay. Do we need to, is there a way, so say we forget to do um, the print function, I'm forgetting the name of it.
Output?
Um, yeah, the output of like the public and private IP, but like, so you run it, you have everything running, and you forget to do that, then do you have to go into the console to access that information, or is there a command that you can
Yeah,
find?
that's a solid
Yeah.
question. There's commands for you to interact with everything that's created. And that would be through the CLI. So the config
Okay.
file is literally just config. And
Yeah.
then the CLI we can use to interact. So yeah, essentially if you can go to the GUI to pull an IP address or like a key or just whatever
Hmm.
like specific you need, you can do that through the GUI. And we are going to do that through the GUI for the labs. I don't remember if it's today, tomorrow, or the next day because I was going through all the labs this week for this week. But you will interact with it because you are going to need information and you are going to pull it through the CLI. And then you will take that information and then you can even put it back into the CLI for the next commands that you'll use. So to answer your question, your perspective is correct, and you're going to see all that in the labs.
Awesome. Thank you.
Did anyone else have a question so far before we continue? Okay, cool. So yeah, so essentially you have a file with configs and remember just very basic level. Then these are what you're going to run to actually get those configurations into place to get the Terraform rocking. All right, so common workflows. Okay, yeah, we can go through this real quick. What time is it? We probably should hurry up. Okay, so common workflows though, you would make your project, CD into your project, and then from here, you'll initialize it first, because if not, it's not gonna, actually, I wonder if this is backwards. I would make the main TF first. Well, we'll see what we do in the lab, so I'll just put a pin in that. But essentially here, these are literally the codes that you would run, assuming that your main TF is created. If you wanted to make changes, this is kind of sloppy. It's not saying this is incorrect, but I think without context, this won't really hold up. It's essentially just saying you have to use what you want to use when you want to use it. Let's go ahead and skip this for now, and you'll see real use case of this during the lab. So here are just some pro tips. You always run plan before apply. Even though apply does run the plans automatically, running it separately gives you time to review it without the pressure of confirming. So even just psychologically, just seeing the plan, knowing that, hey, my objective is to see it and review it, you'll notice the difference when you hit apply and your brain's just like, yes, yes, you're just trying to get past it. Use format regularly unless you have a linter. In fact, this should just say pro tip, use a linter. Validate is fast. You can run it frequently while developing to catch errors early. And then review destroy plans carefully, because remember, it is permanent. And then use version control. So you can use Git. And then there's number 6 here. State is critical. There's going to be a .tf state file, which tracks everything. Never edit manually, because that TF state file is the state management, and it's taking care of it. So it's there not for your usage. It's just there for reference if you need it. For the lab, what I'm going to do is we'll do a mix of back and forth here. We have our blank. I'm going to have to move this over though. I know you guys can't see it, but this, I have you guys on the bottom and it's going to mess this up. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's get rocking here. So for the lab, what we're going to do is we're going to create an EC2 instance with security groups. The overview, in this lab, you will create instances with a security group using Terraform. We're going to configure the group to allow SSH, HTTP, and HTTPS traffic. We're going to launch it in an Ubuntu instance. Some people say Ubuntu, whichever one you want. And we're going to install Apache to serve a simple HTML file. So at the end, we're going to display the public IP address of the instance, and we're going to serve a static web page. So all of that just here, super simple. Your objectives. We're going to create a Terraform config for an EC2 instance. We're going to, once again, define the security group. We're going to deploy the instance and SSH into it. And this is when you SSH into it, that's where we're going to get all that information that I believe Kathleen was asking about, like, well, what if we need this or that? And that's where we'll use it from or utilize it. And then we're going to install Apache and serve a static HTML file. We're going to output the public IP address and use it to verify the web page. To set up your environment, just as with any other project, we're going to start by creating a fresh directory. You should already have it, have Terraform installed on your machine by now, as well as AWS CLI configured correctly on your local machine. And then the first command you want to run, and will always have to run, is, do you guys remember it?
Terraform in it.
Yeah. So I got tripped up before when I said, wait, is that before or after? No, it's, you still do it first. So here's the folder. Actually, let's make a directory here. Let's call it lab1. Okay, so now I'm in this lab1 folder, so I'm going to do Terraform init. Yeah, that's strange. I guess I'm not as dumb as I thought. Let me see something here. All right, so that's a little backwards. The first thing you're going to do is create your main.tf. And then just so you can see this output, here you go. Usually with outputs in general, you usually don't read the whole thing ever. Okay, so here I see this word, I'm good. All right, we're rocking now. So let's see
What
what
did
else
it
we
do
got.
when you ran init before making main.tf?
What did I do?
No, what
Yeah, it
did
just
it?
does like Terraform initialize in an empty directory, and then it,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, it was pretty much saying
yeah.
like, what do you want me to initialize? It's kind of what was happening because there's nothing for it to initialize. So just by creating this file, it's now saying, oh, okay, cool. I have this file here. I can kind of get started, even though it's empty, just because it exists. So let's see here. So now we're ready to start writing. If you guys remember, what you want to do is specify the provider first. And then here, so we are going to use AWS. And then if you remember, we're going to do the region and ignore all the red, especially with new devs. I know it's scary, depending on what your linter looks like, for everything to look like it's always an error. But most of the time, it's just because something's not completed or utilized. So we just keep rocking. So here we have the provider, AWS, the region, US East once. We literally just wrote our first block of Terraform code. This is a legitimate block that's telling us like who to use and specifically which region. So then that's the provider. Another type of block, if you guys remember, it's a resource block. And for the resource block, let's say we're going to do AWS instance. Also notice there's no spaces. That's going to come up, I think today, and I'll tell you guys about the problem I ran into. And then here, you can call it whatever, right? But that sucks. Let me see what I called it. I know I had a, for now, let's just call it server. It doesn't really matter. Whatever server. And then we need our AMI. But let me show you this real quick while we're here. Okay, cool. So here we're creating a resource block. That is an AWS instance, and then an EC2 instance. So we need an AMI. So here we have to replace it with an Ubuntu one specifically. So then the first question is, well, where the hell are we going to get that from? You have to go to the catalog for this. So it kind of sucks like sometimes like when we have to leave the CLI, the safety of our home, if you would. And then here, essentially this is it. This is all of the, I'm going to move you guys over again. Here are a bunch of different instances that we can use, and we can select them. But in our use case, we specifically wanted the Ubuntu one. So what we're going to do right here is search. Now, say we want this first one, 24.04 LTS. I'm going to hit select, but here's what I want you to notice because it's not super intuitive. Just kind of keep your eye somewhere around up here where my mouse is. I'm going to hit the select button. There you go, right here. That's the AMI for a specific Ubuntu server 24.04 EC2. So then what I'm going to do is take this whole bad boy right here, just copy it over. And then here, we're going to enter it with the quotes. And then give me one moment.
I'm sorry. Could you show that window? I looked away when you were on that. How did you get to that AMI catalog?
Well, how did I get here? I had the link, so you're going to have it.
Oh, okay.
You can also
Okay.
search in here. I believe you can just search catalog, should work.
Catalog. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
You can pull the catalog via the CLI.
Oh, you can. Okay. Is it, we're not going to do today because we're super low on time already. But is it intuitive or is it like a hassle to filter and search and stuff?
It's if you got used to it, it didn't seem too bad. And then the output's kind of nice and pretty in a nice table. So
Okay. That's cool. So yeah,
I'd
so
probably still
Kathleen,
click the website though.
okay. And then Kathleen, since you missed it, when you go here in the search bar, you just search for what you're looking for. And then here you can just select whatever. And then here's the AMI up top. And notice it'll change if I click on a different one because they are specific and they don't change. Like they're kind of like hard coded. You can kind of think of them as an ID to that specific service here. And then give me just one moment. Let me pull something up on my other end because I forgot to pull up the I have a working example of this. I just want to make sure it's the same in case we run into trouble. I'll just minimize any debugging time. I'm going to move this over, but this will be the working version just in case we run into trouble. But I don't suspect because we're all experts here. Except, and this is day 1. Cool beans. All right, cool. So, what the hell? Did anybody see where my thing went? That's the lesson plan. I wonder if the one thing shut my thing down. That would be very strange. Give me 1 second. My whole VS Code. Huh. That's bizarre. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I literally have no idea why it would do that. Okay, that's bananas. But the good news, we don't need this. Okay, so let's just do what we did. Terraform init. Cool. So here in our Terraform, okay, there we go. Sorry. It's just this, I'm going to just slap you guys out of view. It's really messing with this process. All right. Okay, cool. So I don't know why everything's disappearing, man. Right now, is it here? Okay, here we go. All right, everybody ready now? Sorry for that intermission. All right, so now that we have this that we want, we're going to literally just go ahead and copy this. And then I guess we already did that before. Okay, cool. And then make sure the syntax is correct, which you need quotes for. And then let's pull up these rest of these instructions here. Okay, sorry guys. So for this resource, we have now created a resource which we're saying, hey, this is an AWS EC2. We're going to call this my EC2. And that's because, remember, if we need to reference it, it needs to be consistent. And then let's see what else we got here. Within here, what we can do is specify the instance type. And then if before you were kind of asking, well, not kind of, you asked about like what kind of options we have. Because remember, this isn't like, this stuff, everything means something. I can't tell you specifically what, but here, at least in my version, I do have this autocomplete. So instance type. And then for this instance type though, what we do want specifically is a t2.micro. Oop. And then notice there's like no commas or anything. And then security groups also autofills. And then for this, we're going to copy in because we need it to be exact.
And so this is that's not, so I did in the user guide, it said, or the GitHub, it said it was like do the Terraform autocomplete, but nothing, so like that's not showing up in my VS Code. Is that an add-in that I need to install to have that populate?
It's hard to say because I have so many extensions. So
It might be a Terraform extension that I need to add.
it may be a Terraform extension. I'm not sure if I have one. If I did, so it wasn't consciously. Yeah, I do have a Terraform extension. Yep.
I should click Terraform. Okay.
So it may be from that. Yep.
Terraform install. Okay.
Solid question. And then,
Thank
okay,
you.
so you're welcome. So right now we have 2 types. We have a provider block and a resource block. And we have a specific EC2 server that we want to use that is Ubuntu. And then what we're going to do is, all right, we're going to go back here for a moment, but I think it may be overkill now. At the time, it felt more important. Here, it's blocks re-explained, I guess just because we're getting into it. So if you remember the first type, block type. Here's an example of block type, provider or resource. There's a bunch of them. Then you have your block label. In this case, AWS is the block label and AWS instance is the block label. And then you have the block name. Here's the block name right here. So it's reiterated because with the first time you saw it, there was really no code to match it. And now you can kind of like really just see what this is here. This is pretty long. I don't know if we're going to read all of this. We'll just do, I guess, a quick reminder just in case you guys need it. So the block type, the first type in here, like the provider, the resource, that determines how the configuration will be handled. A resource is something to create or update, while data is something to be read. But this is, if you remember, it's a resource. And that means Terraform will throw an error if you try to create a resource that has a conflicting parameter with one that already exists, or if you try to access a data object that doesn't exist. So essentially, everything we're doing ties into real world. And if it's already, if you're telling it to do something that's already done, it's going to say, hey, bro, I already did this. It already exists. Or if it doesn't exist at all and shouldn't exist, it's going to be like, dude, that's not even real. So essentially, that's the block type compatibility. Then the block label, which is the second portion here, the AWS instance or specifying the provider. These are deliberately named by the provider. So I know earlier you asked like, hey, where does all this stuff come from? It's actually coming by the provider. And it's more or less, what does it say? More or less line up with what you would expect. Like, for example, AWS VPC. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Other times the provider may have a name that's less intuitive. All right. And then different providers use different labels, which we already just mentioned. And then this is why you have to specify provider somewhere in your TF config. I recommend that you just always do it first. That way you know it, it's always there. Otherwise, the TF compiler, it's going to complain because you're running the risk of confusing it. So literally, if you don't have this provider, it's not even going to know what this is. Well, I mean, it kind of do, but it's going to say, hey, bro, you're trying to use AWS instance for Google Cloud. It just doesn't know. So you have to be explicit with that provider. Then you have your block name. That's the third part. This one, you can name it whatever you want. It says arbitrarily named by you, but I would hope that it's deliberately named by you, to have a purpose. They're used only within the context of your environment. That means these aren't the names that you'll see in AWS. So this is just for you here within the context of the file. And then you can name these anything you want. And then what matters is that to be consistent. If your name is AWS instance, just for example, you can call it Google Compute Instance. You'll need to reference it such everywhere you're using it. So let's see here.
Speaking of that, so it didn't look like in that there was a place to name it as it would be named in AWS. So like for this, when all of us are going to be making a TG micro with the same AMI, like how do I name it? Like lab 4KH.
You're referring specifically to like your instance, like, are you talking about
like
specifically like
within
if you're creating your own EC2 instance, how do we prevent conflicts if we're all
Yeah.
following along? Yeah, you're absolutely correct. If you're literally following along right now, it's not gonna work. Because tell you the truth, honestly, when I go to run this, it's probably already exists from like previously if it didn't destroy properly or whatever. So you
Okay.
are correct. If you want to create your own and ensure that you're not running into conflicts, don't use the same exact like instance name that I'm using. So solid foresight, dude.
But is that Nick put in the chat tags? Is that how you do it?
Oh, if there's additional tags that can reuse names, I'm not certain. Nick, is that
Well,
what
so
you're
like,
referring to, or what
well,
is
no,
this?
because like right now we have AWS instance that says that I want to make an C2, but in order to name it, like how do I name it?
So like
that way
as
both of
on
us could make the same thing. Like he can make, like Nick can make one, I can make one. If they're
Correct.
named different.
no, so like for then what name are we using in the example?
I'm
That's
using
my
my
EC2.
EC2.
That's just a
But that's your
local
local.
name, right?
That's your local. So
That's
how do
not
you put
actually on
the?
AWS.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. How do you name it?
So what I
Oh,
put in chat is the way you can name it, but it doesn't matter. The name could all be the same thing. I think they don't have to have unique names. They're gonna have unique instance IDs or something like that that get generated on creation, right?
Yes,
okay.
but how do I name it so that I can
The
go
way
in
the
and
way I
look
just
and find
posted
it?
it. The way I just
You said
posted it.
the tags.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what the internet said. That's just
Okay.
me.
Let me
'Cause I had the exact
see
same question. I was wondering.
Yeah, it
And
blocks
that would
me on
be
the
in
full
the resource
screen
block.
menu. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I don't, you're saying it's within the resource block with the tags?
yeah, you would here, let me you would do
But I feel like that's not right because there's also tags, right? Like you can tag everything in
I think a name is
AWS.
just a tag. I think a name is just a tag,
Oh,
right?
this is what you're referring to?
Maybe, yeah. That
Nick,
would
if you're
be.
looking at the screen, is this what you're referring to right here? Is this what you mean by when you say tag?
No,
No,
he
it's a
had
little
put like
different.
tag. Yeah, tag
Yeah.
equals.
Scroll down to the bottom of the block, Jonathan.
Oh,
Tags.
There we go.
oh, I see. The literal, okay.
So what's the difference between that name inside of the tag and the name up top? You know what? Let's run it and see what happens.
What I believe is the difference, and tell me if I'm wrong. I believe this one's actually going to AWS. This is actually going to the provider, the tag, and this one's just for your own reference here.
This,
Oh,
but the
Well, yeah,
line
but then
just, why are
okay.
we
So
naming
when
it
you have
twice?
name, so like the name there, security resource. So this is the security group for no, I'm confused. Yeah, because you have resource, it's AWS security group. The name, my AWS security group, that's a local name. So then why are you putting name again inside the block?
yeah, you're saying outside of the tag.
Isn't
Right,
the
the
Right
one
there
you have
that you have
highlighted.
highlighted.
What?
W7D1 is for
What you
AWS?
Yeah, no,
what does that
solid
do?
question. I don't know the exact use case for that. So that is a good question because it does
To
look like
me,
it
that
can be
yeah,
redundant. But if I had to guess, I bet this is being utilized as probably part of the output.
that right there to me looks like because that's identical to what it looks like when you're making it in the um
In the
console
GUI?
because you put a name, you put a description in the GUI, and like the next thing you can link it to a VPC like from the drop down, right? So like if you're just kind of thinking through the console. So I think if I were to after you run this and you go in, I think you would have a security group that's named my dash AWS dash SG,
Let's run it and see what
perhaps.
happens.
Are you guys running it?
I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
I just have provider and resource for the EC2.
Here's
I
what I'm
haven't
going to
even
do
clicked.
though, because
Yeah.
that is a solid question. And if you're running it, let us know the result. But just for time considerations, I do got to power forward. But solid question. Don't think I'm dismissing it. I'm just not 100% certain, and we do got to keep rocking. All right, cool. So, all right, so here we've established this the instance, and then what were we doing after the instance? Okay, we were just talking about blocks briefly. Oh, security groups. Okay, which we didn't add yet. So for the security group, I'm gonna just copy and paste this whole thing instead of typing it out. This is essentially what we were just looking at. So let me push this down a little bit. This is another resource. So you can have multiple resources, and you will have multiple resources. Here we're utilizing security group, and we're naming it. And as we've established, we're renaming it. And Nick's going to tell us right now the significance when he runs his version. So shout out to Nick when we get there. You could put in description, the VPC ID, and then here you're just pulling it in with default. And then let me check something here. We have port 22. Here, this is part of the SSH. This lets you remotely connect to and manage your port 80 HTTP. And then it lets people visit your website, which is port 443. So this is right here, the visitation portion that's secured. This is part of the HTTPS. And then what else here? Another thing too, it blocks this. This is the actual blocking portion, which means allow from any. If you have like an asterisk or zero, this allows any. So right now this isn't really secure, but it's obviously it's just for testing purposes. So it's just allowing all IP addresses. And then here we have egress. With egress, it defines outgoing traffic rules, what your server can connect to. So this one, ingress, is essentially in towards your, what you're doing. And then egress is like the opposite. It's our outgoing to others. And then we should have a protocol on here somewhere. There we go. Actually, is that what it's referring to? No. Um, oh, duh. Right here. So part of the egress, right? Us going outwards. The protocol -1 means all protocols. This allows your server to download updates, make API calls, etc. without limitations. So same way that this allows any visitor without limitation, this allows us to connect to other things without limitations as well. Once again, not secure, but for testing purposes, it's very common for for labs and personal projects. Well, minimal personal projects. And then VPC ID line. This one is right here. That's a reference. This references a VPC that doesn't exist yet. So you'll either need to. That's right. Here's a security note. I think there's a bit of this missing. But here it says security note using all zeros, which we've already discussed. For port 22 is convenient for labs, but dangerous in production. We already know that. All right, so the extra information about this is missing. We'll see if we can come back to that at the last bit of the class. And then here's another block of code. This is going to be your outputs, if you remember. Here are the outputs. It's a public IP. The value of the public IP is this AWS instance, which you'll know from up there, remember? And then my EC2, which you'll know from right here because we're referring to it locally. And then we need a public IP, which is actually pulling in. That's going to actually pull that in from the AWS instance. So this is essentially just, saying, hey, within the instance that we described, we're going to have our own EC2 that we've already defined. And then what's the public IP of that? That's what our output is going to be when we actually run this. So let's see here. Let's see. Make sure that the resource names match. If you name your EC2 instance my EC2, this should be what this is right here. So yeah, just exactly what we talked about. Just make sure it matches or it's not going to do anything for you. All right, let's see if there's any other special notes before we run anything. All right, so let me move this out the way again. Give me one moment.
The extension that you recommended to output instance ID as well.
You said it did what?
It recommended like the next block to be output instance ID just to give you your idea of your instance. I don't know.
Oh, okay, cool. Right
It was
on.
kind of interesting.
So, all right, now we're going to run some commands. And if you remember, what's the first thing you always do, even though we did it when it was blank?
Init.
Yep. So we made changes, right? This main .tf went from being blank to actually having blocks, and so we're going to go ahead and initialize it.
Because you added a provider, right? That was one of the situations in which you needed a rerun init.
Correct.
Because
go ahead.
I ran init and it looked cool. I did it really fast. It was just like, okay, yeah, you're good. Then I added the provider and it took a lot longer because it looked like it was going to Amazon and actually pulling all the options that it could possibly get. So
Okay.
I think it was adding the provider is what you had to rerun init again. I could
Okay.
be wrong though.
No,
That's
right
what it
on.
seemed like.
But also, it's not just writing it, but it's also here even showing the plugins, the dependencies, and that whole universe of things. But yes, you are correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. I think in my case, the speed difference, because I mean, mine was pretty quick. It could be the fact that like everything probably already exists here because I already ran through these labs. But it could also be, who knows? It could possibly also be like RAM and such too, internet speed. Who knows? But here, remember the keyword we're looking for? Successful. So right now, at least at this level, there's no problems. What we're going to do now, do you remember the next one? Anybody remember it?
Terraform
The
format.
validate.
So whoever
validate.
said format is correct, but we have a linter and you can tell.
It's already formatted.
Yeah, if you see all these pretty
Yeah.
spaces, I didn't do any of this. It just happens by itself through magic through my linter. So we're going to skip that. The next one is,
Validate. Mine threw 2 errors.
oof. Let's see what mine does. Oh my God. Wait, did this work? Oh, I misspelled it. I thought it was an error. I was being melodramatic. Terraform. Did I misspell it? Validate? What did I spell the first? Oh, validate. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So we ran into errors. And in fact, if you check out the lab under these list of commands, it's explicit. So error If you've been following along after Terraform validate, you will get an error that looks like, and then there's an example here in the lab. Actually, let me show you right here.
Mhm.
Right here. Terraform validate, errors. This is just one code, not the full one. On line 14, this is just within here, so now we can debug. So here it's specific. It's saying on line 14, we're trying to reference a VPC resource that
And that's
doesn't
why
exist.
the extension kept trying to get me to add a VPC.
Yeah. Well, that's because we never created one named
Yeah.
default. So anywhere in the code. So like this doesn't exist. So right now it's like, what the hell are you, what are you talking about, right? The one good thing to remember is this. Whenever you see an error, especially as like a new dev, because I still do it. I'm just telling you also, I used to do it, but I still do too. Um, Whenever I see an error, like, everything in my nervous system goes off, right? I'm just kind of
Mm.
like, oh my God, like, oh, it's the end of the world. But these errors are not the end of the world. It literally just means like, hey, dude, you didn't do something required. And if it's a good error, it's like, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna just tell you what you got to do. So just take it as like oh, good. Thanks for reminding me, opposed to like the end of the world. But here essentially it's just saying that, right? Line 14, what it's referencing, it doesn't exist, which is its default here. It's just saying like, dude, this doesn't exist at all. Okay, so the solution, we can remove the line. Now, I want to be clear, that's not always a solution, right? It's within the specific context. Normally, if you remove a line, that probably means you're like ripping something out of your code that you had put in for a reason. But here specifically, when you don't specify a VPC ID, AWS is automatically going to use your default, your account's default VPC. Alternatively, you can create a new VPC. So here's what I'm going to do and see if it's going to work. And I hope so, because if so, I don't remember what I did. I think I ended up creating one. But so right here, you see here within the security group, VPC ID. I'm going to delete it. And then I shouldn't have to run an it again. Let's just run validate, see what happens. Okay. So if you saw, wait, how do I still have the same? Oh, I don't have the same one. So before when we ran validate, we had two errors here. We had line 8, line 15. Line 15 was this one. We deleted it. Now we just have one on line 8. So this one is a different error. So what's up with line 8? On line 8, right here, AWS instance, cool beans. That's not the specific line, that's the block that we created. It's saying a managed resource AWS security group, WSG, right here, this whole dealy. It's saying that has not been declared in the root module. What's that referring to? Has not been declared in the root module. This is the root. All right,
I think
let's
it's the
see.
name. It's the name of the security group is my underscore AWS underscore SG,
Yeah,
but it's called something else. Wait, because now it says a
Yeah,
managed
it's called
resource,
web
AWS
underscore
is
SG.
web SG, so we're trying to call it by the wrong name somewhere.
yeah, I think that's, let me check my code. I think that's exactly what it is.
Oh yeah, so it's in the
Yep.
resource AW2 instance, so it is on line 8. So that should be AWS underscore security underscore group period my instead of so my underscore AWS
Well,
underscore
well,
SG instead of
it depends how you want to do it.
yeah, you
Because
can do either way.
yeah,
Replace
yeah,
the other one.
exactly. Yep. So essentially, the TLDR is right here within the security groups. You have this, which is one thing, the actual security group we're referencing. But then remember how we named this bad boy? Uh, we're just gonna slap that
Yeah.
here. So now that should resolve it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and validate again. All right, I'm going home, guys. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's see here. Has not been declared. My W. Yes.
So
Can
did
you
it
just
not work?
try
Because it worked
the,
for me.
can you try the underscore version?
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that's interesting because now I have it because it worked with mine. I have an underscore for on line 8 and on 12, but on 13, I have hyphens.
Yeah, that's how
So
I have it set up on mine.
so I
Line
looked it up.
13. Go ahead.
Confusingly enough, EC2 instances don't have a top level name where you can name it. You have to put it in as a tag. Security groups do have a top level name. So what you're doing here,
Uh,
Is
yeah.
naming
So
it.
well, so
Yeah.
right there, what you have highlighted with the underscores is the local variable name for that security group. Which yes, now what you have highlighted right there with the dashes is what it's going to be
Yeah.
called on the AWS console.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's why
okay,
they
that
don't
makes
conflict.
sense. So then
Yeah.
also what you're saying is within this file, what we're doing here is just referencing our local name, but then it knows
Yes,
Mhm.
to
not the
actually pull
AWS name.
the name. So then
Yeah.
this answers that initial question. What's the point of this?
Security groups can have a high level name. EC2 instances can only get a name from a tag. You can't put it at high level. And there's a table I found somewhere that, lists certain resources you have a name up top, like security groups. Some of them you can only name it via tag. I didn't ask why.
All right. Well, yeah, sometimes you know, it's crazy. Part of being an engineer, like I think most of us share that like love for learning and that like inquisitive nature. But at some, you have to know when to stop, because if not, you're going to go down these rabbit holes. So make sure you get what you need to keep rocking, and then go a little past it, but you got to know when to stop. All right, cool. So right now we validated, and we have no problems. We are now successful, right? That's just a validation. So we're going to kind of go back up here, right? So now that we've handled these errors, what we're going to do is go right back through to where we were. Am I tripping? Is this not the right list? Oh, it's just very hard to read. Okay, whatever. So we validated. What's the next portion?
Plan.
Close, plan. Unless you have an accent.
I said plan.
Oh, all right. We're gonna watch it back on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you did. So Terraform
Okay.
plan. And if you guys remember, it's just that. This is a dry run, no pressure. I'm gonna make this big so you can actually see it. You guys remember all the pluses and minuses, right? The pluses mean we're creating, minuses means we're taking away, and tildes means we're modifying. Uh, as you know, I mean, this is our first run through, so obviously it's only creating. That's what all these pluses are for. This is all the stuff we specified in our code. And then if we go all the way down, this is the most important. I mean, unless you're very meticulous, we're adding two resources is really what we're doing. We're not changing anything. We're not destroying anything. So I hate this so much. This is my least favorite part of VS Code, and I've seen other people struggle with this too. Where it's like this line, it's like you gotta just catch it. Okay, anywho's, so yeah, if you look here, the provider, that's just for, so Terraform knows which specific keywords and such to reference, right? The output is what we're like actually going to output once we apply. Here, these resources, that's actually what that plan's referring to. It's saying we got two things, it's those two resources. And then let's go down to this bottom here. All right, cool. What's after that? Who knows? After Terraform plan, what do we do?
Send it.
Apply.
Say again?
Apply or send it.
Correct, apply. Apply is the keyword, just so you don't
Full
forget.
send.
Yeah, and then so because I guess you hit apply or someone else hit apply first, I got an error saying they couldn't create the security group because it already exists with that name.
All right, well, let's see what's going to
So
happen.
I'm
Right,
gonna yeah.
we got two different machines. Let's see. Terraform apply. All right, remember it's showing you the plan again, and now we're going to confirm. Type yes. Oh my God! Another error. Who could have planned for this? Right? So here, if you're following along, we did plan for this. Another error, possibly, because it depends on the use case. If you ran Terraform apply, you might see a new error like this. This one specific, let's ensure it's the same. It's saying line 11, AWS security group, yada, yada, yada. What does ours say? Line 12, yeah, it's the same thing. So literally the same error that we pre-planned for happened. If so, this means your account does not have a default VPC to connect to. So your, actually, wait, let me read this exact one, make sure it's the same. Operation HTTP config. 400. So this is what's more important. You read this how you would like a payload, right? Because it is a payload. I usually just start from here. So a 400 request ID, API error, invalid group duplicate. I don't think this is the same one, is it?
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying, is that it's
Mm,
we because we named it, right? Somebody else
yeah,
clicked.
more than
So
likely that's
because I
exactly
went,
what it is.
yeah, I went back and added a 3 on my name
On
and
his
reran
line
it and it
13.
worked.
Is there somebody has the
Yeah.
original error? What is
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah. Well, it's more than likely it's me because, like I said, I've been running through these labs. The only thing that's odd, and I brought this issue up earlier in our meeting, is when you destroy, it's supposed to destroy the instance. And when
Hmm.
I'm done messing with it, I always destroy it, but I always run into these problems. So let's take a look. Let's see. If so, this means your account does not have a default VPC to connect to
So
create
this
one.
error is because
Here's what I'm gonna do, because exactly like you said, I'm pretty sure it's just a duplicate. I'm gonna just copy this and see what happens for the heck of it. Worst case, we'll go down the rabbit hole together. You must specify region, yeah. Um, just in case, let's see what happens. Wait, why is that wrong? Does this go in quotes? Unknown options. Hmm. All right, here's what I'm going to do because I do believe, regardless, I do believe the issue is exactly like what we're saying. It's just the fact that it's like a duplicate. What I am going to do though, because I don't remember all these codes offhand, and I don't think anybody ever really will. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this into my good friend Gemini. We went to high school together. It's a great joke. Okay, and let's see what it's. Let's just see what it says because it could just. Hopefully, it's just going to give me like a CLI command to delete it, and then I'll reinstall it fresh just so we can continue with this.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting lesson on what resources can be shared and what can't be shared.
Well, that's the thing. You can share it, and that's kind of what we're going to get into tomorrow when we talk about imports. So this is
Mm.
kind of set up right now. Not, I think it could have been set up better. I did restructure it, but I hadn't considered the real world implementation of it. So essentially, this is kind of like more of like a one player mode view. I didn't really know anyone was going to follow along. That's why I didn't, because normally I would have specified. But either way, I'm still following along, if you would, from my past self, which is why we're running into this. But yeah, tomorrow we're going to get into imports. So tomorrow we're going to actually import aspects of this, and then which kind of makes it like reusable in a sense. But let's see here. Terraform is trying to create a security group named this, but it already exists. Yep, yep, yep. We figured that out. Terraform creates resources of the resource. Oh, see? So here it's just saying to import it. I was hoping it was just going to tell me to destroy it. All right, whatever. So, did I miss the... Oh, yeah. Okay. And then the security group ID, does anyone know where to get that from? Because I don't remember. I don't believe it's in here. I think we have to call it.
Yeah, it's going to generate one, right? When you create the security group.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So it has to already exist.
Do you have to do like a string interpolation for the security group name?
Delete the existing resource. Because this is what I did last time, just to kind of get through the demo. Here, let's do this. Let's just go ahead and delete it. Now, normally you don't want to go through like deleting stuff all willy-nilly, but the thing is, it's just for a demo purpose. And then I wonder what I'm doing wrong.
You did, yeah. You gotta flag it, right?
Do you? What, like region
Like,
equals?
well, or something like that. Like, see how see delete security group name.
Here, let's slap this into Gemini. I don't remember the syntax. The thing with Gemini takes forever. I try not to try to use it. Oh, okay, correct. Dash dash region. That's what's messing us up. So good call out. And now we'll all remember it forever. Dependency violation. The
Ah,
common deletion group operation has a dependent object. Yep.
Is it dependent on the EC2 or the EC2 is dependent on it or something? Or something is, right?
Something, yeah, that's the question. That's something. Okay, especially too because I've been running through a few of these labs and they do interconnect. Um, so more than likely, yes. Uh, it does show here the resource, but to me, that doesn't mean much at the moment.
Yeah, that
Uh,
that's just the security group ID,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, yeah. But I meant like the specific, like the code. There are ways to pull it up, but like I said, I don't remember all the full like CLI commands in relationship to the GUI. I wonder if it'd be easy to import it because essentially at this point, I just really want to get it to rock so I can set you guys free.
It's
But
just AWS EC2 describe security groups is the
one word or hyphens?
yeah, so AWS space EC2 space and then describe security groups with hyphens.
How do you know all this?
Well, I had made a cheat sheet earlier in the course.
Actually, they're
S.
all the same though. If you have EC2, you have describe images, describe
Security
S3,
group.
describe. It's the same pattern.
Add an S and hit enter.
Oh, plural. Thank you.
Yeah, it's images, security groups, VPCs.
Oh,
Was with or
Well,
without
there's a
quotes?
pattern to
No
it. So,
quotes.
Ah,
uh, region, yes.
oh, I don't know.
How do you skip?
There you go. All
yeah.
right. So yeah, right here. And then we need the ID right here. Should be well, that's for
That's
the
that's the
VPC.
VPC.
Yeah.
The group ID, did you
Or
see it? SG?
I'm sorry?
Yep.
You actually saw it? Hold on, let me scroll
Yeah.
it down because usually the good stuff's at the bottom. Is this infinite?
Although
Oh, it's going to be
yeah,
all the. You just listed all the security groups
you
for
just
EC2s,
listed,
right?
we should have table formatted it. My bad.
yeah,
No,
but
it's
you
all
can
good.
also use filter depending on what specific things you could use for. And the format for filter is, I think, name and then value.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
It's it's you can filter certain things like for what do you want to filter on exactly?
The
Because
EC2 instance. We're looking for the security group for this. We're looking for the EC2 instance ID, right?
Well, here's what I'm thinking
Or
though.
whatever it's dependent on.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, guys, because like I said, just not having, I guess, the proper foresight of the context of the usage for this, right? Because remember, it's not really about this project; it's about the learning. But furthermore, it's about there's additional steps you guys have to do on your own. Um, so deleting it and rebuilding it's not going to work unless you guys are going to do the next portion as a class. Like if you guys wanted to do it together, but that wasn't the expectation. So I think what I should do is utilize the import. Because like I said, that is supposed to be for tomorrow's class. But if we utilize the import now, oh, I guess we still need the group ID, huh? Okay. Yeah, I guess that's a question then. How do we get this group ID and then import it? That way, on your own local machines, you can import it as needed to do the next steps. Does that make sense to everyone?
It's a good question.
The security group
With Terraform?
ID for the one we were just messing with.
Yeah, for the one we were trying to get rid of that we shouldn't get rid of.
It showed in your console a couple of times.
Here's-
Yeah. Scroll up. What do we do to make that appear? Maybe not that
You
far.
could try the generic tac output table and just see what it gives you on that command.
like this?
Yeah, but flag it in your command. So redo your command that you have above the AWS EC2 describe security groups region, and then just tac output table.
So press up arrow one time in your terminal.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, no? Okay, and then what?
we're talking about the terminal, right, Troy?
Yeah.
Oh, in the terminal. I'm sorry, I
Yes.
thought you said, oh, I thought you meant the output block. Okay, so here, do what now?
All right, and then
Space.
space tac output space table
Oh, tracking.
just to see if you can get a cleaner.
Group
Looks
ID?
cleaner, but you want to filter on something, right? Or you want a
You could
specific.
filter. It depends on how many values this table outputs, right? So But yeah,
It,
so
it's
group
going to be
ID.
huge. There's tons of security groups in there. I'm looking at them right now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
somebody already created some security groups, like Monica created some stuff.
Yeah, unless
So you
you
can.
delete your security groups, all the security groups build up over time. There's a ton of them in there.
Oh yeah, yeah, there is a ridiculous amount, isn't there?
There's like 30 something probably.
Do you want to create our own, or have we already created our own?
Yeah, we're trying to delete one, and it's dependent on something, and so we're trying to figure out what it's dependent on, right?
Mm, right. Dependencies. Mm-mm.
And right now I'm just asking, well, I know you can see my screen still. So I'm asking Gemini to see if there's like an easier way. Because your way makes sense, but like you said, ah, I mean, is that an assumption on its part? That it's actually the first?
I think that is an assumption.
I mean, I would assume it's an assumption. Let's
Yeah, I
see.
mean, how many dependencies
Well,
is it gonna
that's
have
But you only
associated
made
with
one,
once?
right?
Because if that was the case, it'd be a list, wasn't it?
yeah, I think it's going to be a list. I think that is just saying the first value within the
Correct.
field.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by an assumption. Is it just assuming it's the first one that we're trying to reference?
With the
Oh,
like special syntax that you're using here for the CLI,
mm,
Mhm.
I think it only has one value. When you go back to that raw table we just kicked out and you look at the security ID,
Oh,
I just dropped a
you're
snippet
saying
of
within
code
here?
in the chat.
yeah, do you see how it's only got one?
yeah, that's what I was referencing. Using how to filter based on a certain whatever
You,
name
you
you
said
want
it
to,
only has one,
because
but that is a different ID from the one that we pulled.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're
so
saying.
we created a whole different security group. But we must have associated it. There has to be like some sort of parameter that associates it with,
It's associated with the EC2.
yeah, with the
That's what we
EC2, right?
created, right? Yeah, it's
So
literally in our Terraform code. We associated that security
correct,
group with the EC2, so you can't delete the security group until the EC2 is deleted
correct.
first.
So there's
So-
a there
Well,
there's
but
a
remember, guys, too, I did change the objective because remember, deleting it won't work because you guys on your own have to do the next few steps. So if everyone's going to delete it and then redo it, you guys are just going to run into a crazy amount of conflicts unless you use different naming conventions, different security groups. But everyone can import the security group and keep rocking. So right now, that's what we're trying to do with this import. And if so, we can follow these steps and let's see what happens because I believe it's going to work. So here, yeah, actually, so like remember the great debate where we said, is it assuming that it's just the first one in the list? This is our actual security group that we want. If you guys remember, this is the one that we specified. So by doing so, we were also able to import it. So then how did we do that? It's literally, it was just these two steps. So the first thing was, and we can post this, I can post this in the chat right now. So essentially, where is it? That's not the first one. Oh. So yeah, we essentially run this line here, which is a ridiculous line, which is why I feel like no human can remember it unless you're working with this every day, I'm sure. But you know, by doing this, it actually pulled in the security group ID. Then here we did an import for it. So instead of destroying and recreating it, which would only work for one person at a time, now everyone can actually utilize it by importing that group. Instead of creating it from scratch, we're importing the one that already exists using the one that came here. So just if everyone didn't see that one line though.
Can that be put in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing
And we're
is,
gonna do that.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, the only thing is, while I'm screen sharing, I don't know why Zoom literally won't let me like back into like the main portion. Actually, hold on. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, there we go. Cool. I'm gonna slap this over too. So let me copy it from here. So this one is going to, I'm gonna not comment it just so it's easier to copy for you guys. And then here I'll just put, and then from there, then you do this. I put this one in the chat, the second one. This second one, replace. Oh, There you go. So with those two, you'll be cool. So let me see something real quick. Where were we in this list here? Oh, right here. Create a VPC. Well, we don't have to do that. This was a different error that we didn't run into. Okay, so now that we did this, though, let's clear out. Let's remember we never successfully ran it yet. So let's just do Terraform plan again, because that's good practice. When we're running plan, it's saying, okay, we're adding one, which is the instance myEC2, because before we run into the conflict with that. And then here, we're going to do, everybody remember? Apply. We're going to hit yes, and hopefully there are no errors, but there's no promises. So I'll say this already.
Be gentle with him.
Oh, nice. I was about to say that I'm already concerned based on the timing. Okay, so since now we just imported that security group, we were able to use it. But through
Kathleen, you're not muted.
Sorry. Yeah, my 2-year-old hit my 8-month-old in the face with something. I was just telling him to not do that.
So with the, what are we looking at here? So, okay, so with this process, you did see how to actually set it up if you were setting it up organically. For the scope of today, that instance already exists, which is fine. So we're actually importing it. That way you can continue with the assignment. So this little walkthrough that we did took a little bit longer than, took a lot longer than it should have, but it's okay. I feel like especially with the debugging, I think
quick question. What did we import it to? Did we import it to like a file or like a Terraform?
The state, right?
The state? Yeah, Terraform state, TF state, right?
Are you saying import or with the apply?
We imported the security group ID or the entire security group, correct?
Correct.
But we imported, I believe Nick just said it because I was curious too. Because there's Terraform state, right?
I think import's a misnomer, but it's a good question. I don't think you're just taking the value of a pre-existing resource and putting that value into your main.tf.
I see what you're saying. And you're saying it's a misnomer because it's actually, you're not importing it like you would like a UI library, but instead what you're saying is you're actually utilizing it externally through the
My question is probably confusing it, is that are we importing it to like TF state or are we saving it to something or importing it to something? Like a file is to give it some sort of permanence. So I'm just going to assume it's import state and I'm just going to research it later.
So to clarify, are you asking when you're importing it, how does it actually retain that?
Correct.
Oh, that's a solid question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think I have to research it later.
The Terraform.
My guess is probably TF state.
Oh, it's in the lock.
And then my question then along with that, so like it's imported, but then does it conflict with with this resource block that's in the main.tf form then, or does it replace that?
I believe it's actually just ignoring that block then, because it's not utilizing it. Because when it tried to utilize it, it said, no, dude, it already exists. So then we're like, okay, can you import it? And it's like, yeah, I'll import it. So now even though the code is in here, but remember with a normal project, you're not going to have both, right? You're not going to create it and import it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just because this, like I said, it was just kind of set up for like a one-player demo. But then since everyone's following along, and I actually, for your assignment, you have to continue it anyway. So that shouldn't have been the intention. It should have been done differently, which means you're going to probably run into this same issue with your next few projects as well, where you're going to have to create something, learn how to do it, but then actually just import it, which is fine. So I'm going to set you guys free right now, but let me just kind of go over this real quick. I'm going to recommend that you guys work in groups for this because this looks, unless you guys have already went over this, but I don't believe you have. In fact, I'm certain you haven't unless you've hit it in real life. This looks like it's going to be like super simple. And it is when you have the answer, let's say. But everything we did today is not enough context to really do this. But you can do it using each other's knowledge, using some online resources, using AI, but try to use it as a last resort, and then asking our TAs for help. So essentially, what you're going to have to do from this starting point. So you guys can like just kind of slap this stuff over and then just import like how we just did to get rocking. But you're going to SSH into the EC2 instance using the public ID. So that's kind of part of what you're gonna have to do too, say, oh, how do I get that public ID? And then you're gonna update the system and install Apache. This is all once you're shelled in. And then you're gonna create a simple HTML file. Literally for this, just make it like hello world. I mean, that's it. It's just the fact of creating it. This isn't an HTML class. And then you're gonna verify that Apache service is serving your HTML file. You're gonna open your browser. You're gonna navigate to that public ID. So you're gonna have to figure that portion out. And then this is how you would run it. And then essentially when you're there, you're gonna see hello world, whatever simple little script you want to put in, or I mean string you want to put in there. And then when you're done, remember to delete your EC2 instance if you created one. Like I said, this seems deceptively simple. You don't have all the answers on how to do that. So kind of think of this as like a little mini research if you need to.